As soon as we're introduced to the lightsaber, we learned it is the weapon of a Jedi Knight. Not long after, we got a glimpse of Sith Lords who wielded lightsabers of their own, and for a long time, we really only saw Jedi and Sith draw lightsabers in battle. But people who aren't Force-sensitive view the weapon differently than the Jedi who use them as an extension of their arms, or the Sith who use them as instruments of rage. Because of this, it's fascinating to see how non-Force sensitives handle such an iconic weapon, from those who use sabers as weapons and symbols of power, to those who use them as simple tools. The utility of lightsabers is as diverse as those who wield them. This video is going to shine a light on some of the coolest, unconventional lightsaber wielders in the Star Wars universe. So, let's get started. Yes, the man who famously said, "Nothing beats a good blaster at your side," has used a lightsaber before. The most memorable example is in The Empire Strikes Back, where he cut open a tauntaun to save a frozen Luke Skywalker. But only the most hardcore fans might remember Han's second example, which happened in issue number 10 of the original Marvel Comics. During the story, Han and Chewie teamed up with a collection of misfits and a parody of the classic western, The Magnificent Seven, joining forces against a world of lawless bandits. One of those misfits was a wannabe Jedi, Don Juan Quixote. So hey, this example is a 2-for-1.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Don Juan had some solid lightsaber skills, but when he attempted to battle a Sith spawn, his old age got the better of him, forcing Han to pick up the lightsaber and slay the beast himself. Another instance of Han wielding a lightsaber was in Star Wars Heir to the Empire. Han and Leia were being pursued by an exact replica of the Millennium Falcon, and as the ship moved to attack them, Han grabbed Leia's lightsaber and sliced through the coolant cables on the underside to bring it down. Not too bad for a smuggler. Cad Bane just might be one of the most interesting bounty hunters in the galaxy. He engineered a hostage crisis on Coruscant, stole Jedi holocrons and younglings, attempted to kidnap the Supreme Chancellor, and no matter what he did, he always seemed to get away scot-free.
Like a boss.
The wide variety of weapons and gadgets he and his droid had at their disposal contributed to his survival skills. From electrified bolas to blasters and rocket boots, Cad Bane seemed to have tools for every situation. These tools allowed him to hold his own against 2 of the most powerful Jedi on the planet Teth when he battled Obi-Wan Kenobi and Quinlan Vos. At one point, he was even able to disarm Vos and use his lightsaber to briefly fight Obi-Wan in a duel. While Bane was quickly disarmed, he continued fighting barehanded before escaping from the 2 Jedi. Cad Bane was already a pretty cool character, but getting to see him hold his own against 2 Jedi in a big fight and wield a lightsaber, however briefly, was something his fans loved. If you're enjoying this video, pick up your own lightsaber and slash through the like and subscribe button. While the movies might have left Finn's Force sensitivity up for debate, he uses a lightsaber quite a few times in the new trilogy, including against Kylo Ren and Stormtrooper FN 2199. Despite Finn's lack of training and experience with the weapon, he was able to hold his own in 2 fights and even landed a hit on old Kylo. He might not have been a Jedi Knight in the live-action movies, but his Stormtrooper training certainly gave him everything he needed to be good at melee combat. The LEGO Star Wars Holiday Special, however, confirmed the theory that Finn is Force-sensitive. He's shown being trained in lightsaber combat by Rey, so fans might see him wield the weapon in future projects too. The Darksaber is a legend in its own right among Star Wars fans by now, but it first appeared in the Clone Wars as an ancient Jedi weapon, taken by the Death Watch during the fall of the Old Republic.
My ancestors during the fall of the Old Republic. Since then, many Jedi have died upon its blade.
Pre Vizsla first used the weapon against Obi-Wan during an ambush. With the Darksaber and his Mandalorian fighting skills, he was able to force Obi-Wan to retreat. He later used the Darksaber during a duel with Darth Maul for the leadership of Mandalore. Despite using every trick at his disposal, he was ultimately defeated, and Maul took possession of the weapon, using it until it fell into other hands. This goes to show while anyone can theoretically use a lightsaber in combat, especially if they have training or experience, it doesn't mean that they can wield a lightsaber as well as a Jedi or Sith Master can with the use of the Force. After discovering the Darksaber on Dathomir, Sabine Wren was trained by Canon Jarrus to use it. Despite some early setbacks while learning, she was able to use both the Darksaber and Ezra Bridger's lightsaber to defeat Gar Saxon. She later dueled with Shin Hati more than once while rescuing Ezra. While Sabine later had the Force awakened inside her after the battle with Grand Admiral Thrawn, for the most part, she relied on her Mandalorian combat skills and training to augment her skill with the blade. Moff Gideon is a normal human who fights with anger and brutality that rivals that of any Sith Lord. Despite his calm exterior, he is extremely aggressive in battle, and that aggression allows him to partially make up for not being Force sensitive. Moff Gideon relies on sheer power to get the upper hand on his foes. When you see him fight, he is constantly pushing for kill shots, which is certainly something to see in battles against heavily armored opponents. He even destroyed the Darksaber using a suit of powered armor and an electrostaff, bringing an end to the legacy of the weapon before he died. While many clone troopers fought alongside the Jedi, there was one who thought he, too, could become a Jedi. The clone, Glitch, appeared in the graphic novel Defenders of the Lost Temple. He truly believed himself to be Force sensitive, even if his belief made him the laughingstock of his squad. However, when the Death Watch attacked his group, he found his chance to prove his power. Glitch was able to get his hands on a lightsaber and ended up fighting Pre Vizsla in a duel. While Vizsla was able to overpower Glitch without much effort, it was still extremely interesting to watch a clone trooper fight with a lightsaber. In the end, he was able to save his squad from the Mandalorians and ultimately find his connection to the Force. Of course, we can't talk about unconventional lightsaber wielders without mentioning one of the most notable, General Grievous. Despite fighting on the side of the Separatist Alliance, he was not a Sith Lord. Grievous was a Kaleesh warlord whose body was rebuilt after an accident, which turned him into the cyborg we know today. He also ended up being trained in lightsaber combat by Count Dooku. This power, along with being able to wield 4 lightsabers at once, allowed him to go toe-to-toe with some of the most skilled lightsaber duelists in the Jedi Order. His cyborg body, having clawed feet, 4 arms, and enhanced strength and agility, gave him some pretty significant advantages when it came to combat. Also, having a mostly mechanical body meant that Grievous put the destruction of his enemies over his physical safety, as broken droid parts could be easily repaired. When this angry cyborg is on screen, you never know what he's going to do next, and that makes him such a compelling character. In the 1985 series, Droids, The Adventures of R2-D2 and C-3PO, the 2 droids spent time with people other than Luke, and Thrall Dromund was the first of them. He was a speeder racer who took on R2 and 3PO as members of his racing crew, and had, at one time, collected a lightsaber that one of his previous customers had left behind. Thrall used the lightsaber like a tool, cutting through blast doors and restraints during his adventures with the droids. Since he was a pilot and racer, it was interesting to see his mindset around using a lightsaber, as he treated it more as a tool than a weapon. There isn't even a major backstory around the lightsaber, he just happens to have it. Anyone in the Star Wars universe could ignite a lightsaber, and most characters have at least some type of melee training. However, not everyone is able to wield the weapon without being a danger to themselves. Still, it's always a treat to see people who aren't Force users pick up a lightsaber and give fighting with it a shot, even if most of them only use it to augment their swordsmanship, or as a tool to cut things open. Let us know if we missed any one of your favorite lightsaber wielders, and check out the 5 battles that put the war in Star Wars next.